this is the healthy thing to do because it's frustrating to realize just how disorganized your thoughts are until you actually speak into a camera. I recommend this to anybody. So this is going to be a slightly different topic than what I usually do. I'm going to call it a century in review because we're at the end of 2025 and everybody's doing year in review stuff. So I'm going to do a century in review. So 1925 to 2025. So I'm going to separate this into just the general story for 5 minutes. I'm going to talk about who actually contributed things over the past 100 years. Like, what do people remember? So this is an unresearched video because what people remember is something I'm gonna be thinking of as I go. It's not gonna be something that, oh, if you really look into the details, this is important. No, this is what's important to the man in the street. So the story of the 20th century is 1925. 1925, things were going really well, but there were problems working under the surface. And the economy, worldwide economy, crashed in the 1930s, and some people used the difficulties in order to gain power. The Soviets had just done this before. Obviously, the bad people in Germany obviously got in power, and then people in Italy, who I think most people consider not as bad, got in power. Then, of course, the Japanese basically had their moment of empire. So a lot of really bad things happened. Um, Basically, the Europe that was being rebuilt slowly by World War One was destroyed again. And the first one, I think people had the impression that okay, this happened one time. We'll get back to being Europe. World War Two, I think, just destroyed the concept of a traditional Europe. The idea of a Christendom was completely destroyed by World War Two. So, what does this mean? This meant that despite the bad people having a lot of basically leftist ideas, they were conflated with conservatives. And that basically led to the rise of liberal Europe and liberal America and the whole liberal age. And the liberal age began in 1945. And the honest truth is that the liberals actually did a really, really good job for 50 years, basically. 1945 to 1995 were pretty overall fantastic in a lot of ways for Europe and for America. Economy basically boomed, material stuff gained. There's a lot of stuff in arts and culture happening. Um, Things basically reached the peak of civilization. But at the same time, there were problems that were slowly eroding the roots of these successes. You can see this in the sexual revolution that happened 1970s, 1980s. You can see this in declining fertility rates. You can see this in a decline in ambition. But things kept getting built up, and people were like, well, yeah, there's things going on under the surface, but overall, things are going well. The issue is that liberalism became decrepit. They began, let's say 1990s, late 1990s, around the time that I started showing up is the person in the world. Things started, some of the ramifications of liberal theology became apparent. The belief in absolute equality between everybody, not just genetic, but like cultural and everything, basically led to mass immigration that has had a lot of bad effects on Europe over the past 20 years. That's one. Two, economic stagnation, so on and so forth. I'm probably talking about too much about Europe. All these things are true in America too, just not to the same extent. Maybe I should talk about America more. So America, same thing. Our mass import of immigration basically suppressed wages. Our sexual revolution basically led to suppressed families and all kinds of little harms, like not having families. That's a damage. That's something people have lost. That is a wound on people. Yes, family is the foundational value set that people have, and people don't have them, they're not as happy as they would be otherwise. And the only reason people don't see that is because of all of the damage that's been done to families that do form divorce, all that kind of stuff. So, things just started steadily getting worse, and the culture started with like things like that I'm probably okay with, and it just went weird, and just the amount of bias against good people just increased and increased and increased. And eventually that has an effect. There's a while where you can have, okay, yeah, things are shaky in some areas, but things are fine for me. Um, in the 2000s, this started showing up with the emergence of pickup culture, and then it became the bedpost space. Basically, as things got worse and worse for the average person just trying to live a good life, people responded in more and more extreme ways. First, they're like, well, maybe if I just play the game better, things will get better for me. Then people were like, well, maybe if I play the game better and get really in shape and get a job and do all these things, if I just keep getting better, maybe things will work out. This sort of stopped being a thing in 2020. I think 2016, maybe 2016. And people were like, no matter how hard you try, you still lose. It's like, okay, well, what do you want me to do? And that's where we have the current state of things. The left is going crazier and crazier down their particular avenue, starting from a good place in the 1940s and 1990s. But just the ramifications of their cultural presuppositions just got worse and worse and worse. It's happened with any culture. Every culture destroys itself. And there's an increasing backlash going on. And that's basically where we are now. A good culture, liberalism, became more and more extreme in its sillier aspects of identity. And that's led to a weakening of society. And as that happens, the backlash against that has been increasing, increasing, increasing. And that's the state of which we're at. That's the point at which we're at now. Um, but still, overall, pretty good century. A lot of cool things happened. So scientifically, we discovered so much about the world. Quantum physics wasn't even a concept. Physics discoveries, understanding genetics, biology. Like we understand the world way better on a more precise basis than we ever had before. And the response has been to go against acknowledging that. um, but so scientifically, a lot of big advances. Culturally, people were like, "Oh, left wingers created all the culture in the 20th century." No, they did not. No, you had basically who are the thinkers we're going to be thinking? Who are the people who actually contributed to something we'll be thinking about in 100 years? That would be Tolkien, conservative Catholic. You're going to have Robert Heinlein, libertarian, conservative libertarian. You can have somebody like C.S. Lewis, who's probably the best preach religious theologian over the past 100 years. You can have somebody like political figures like Donald Trump, who are going to be remembered. You're going to have you are going to see the 50 years of Jewish culture and Jewish culture reaching the mainstream through movies, TV, all that kind of stuff. And they did a lot of good stuff. Um, but that's not necessarily left wing, right? That's a conservative group, right? Um, yeah, I will say that. So the out of left wing culture, the Jewish culture was the stuff people actually contributed something. So the left wing woke brigade, what have they actually contributed? Like, yeah, I know there's some random French philosophers and stuff we've had over the past 100 years. Who remembers any of their names? Like, who is actually going to be remembered in 50 years from the past century? It's going to be a lot of conservative figures, I think. It's not going to be the left wing figures that are remembered. Let alone remembered positively. The other thing that's happened in the past 100 years is a lot more international cooperation. And again, this started from a place of good. Hey, more trade, we can not have wars. Great. Lovely, we all get along. But it turned out that a lot of these institutions were basically co opted by the people who don't really want the civilization underneath it to continue. So, what started off as something being run by military former soldiers in World War II, right, who believed in Western civilization and everything, they slowly got supplanted by a bunch of left wing idiots who think that the purpose of their institutions is to destroy the civilizations that support those institutions. So naturally, people are going back to nationalism. Of course they are. If your international organizations don't are not democratic, are not liberal, and don't support your culture continuing into the future, why do you expect people to support it? Because of what people did 60 years ago? Like, they're running on fossilized prestige. It's not working anymore. It's just not. But next 100 years, I predict it's not going to go well. It's going to be rough, man. Anyway, that's all I got. Cheers.